I was stupid. I heard something. I got it from an anonymous source who I'm now sure was one of Wennerström's lackeys.
Ska du bara lämna det där?
It was fake, which he easily proved in court.
Jag hade tänkt komma för länge sedan.
You were quite emphatic that the way I looked into your life was illegal and immoral. Would you feel the same about Wennerström?
Go on.
I did some work on my own on him before you hired me. I haven't had a chance to look at it all because you and Harriet fucking Wenger have kept me busy.
Spela spel, surfa på nätet.
But I may have something.
Welcome to the Hollywood Gauntlet.
I've seen the young cop and the old cop. I've seen, I've seen many different permutations of the team, the partnership, and this seemed to be just really touching. It was sort of naughty and intimate and it just seemed like not something that you'd seen, certainly in an American movie.
I trained, I wanted to change my body. I wanted to transform into her. So I exercised a lot of kickboxing and Thai boxing. I was on a certain diet because I wanted to be more masculine and a bit more skinny.
I think if you've read the books, I think you find she adheres very closely to the character in the book.
What he does is he's so good at presenting a kind of style and a kind of spooky atmosphere immediately, so the audience is riveted from the start. Rather like Stieg Larsson's book, where you're riveted from the start. You can't put it down. Not great literature, but you can't put it down.
And me and a million other people thought, wow, this would make a great movie.
I was sent the English language translation of Stieg Larsson's first book when it was in galleys in 2005, 2006, something like that. And I didn't read it.
Actually, I enjoyed it very much, and I wanted to do my fighting scenes. I didn't want a stunt woman to come in and do it.
David was kind of championing me pretty early on in, and it was sort of about convincing everyone else. And there was just screen test after screen test, and then, after like 4 of those or 5 of those, we just started doing like different hair and makeup tests, and we shot a little bit on the subways in LA and stuff like that.
When you're doing a thriller, when you're doing a murder mystery, there's got to be a kind of the right amount of tension, and you've got to believe that the characters are going to get in trouble.
I didn't read it the first time it was sent to me in 2006 because I just didn't think Hollywood would. The story as it was told to me, I didn't think a Hollywood studio would pay to make that movie.
I was some kind of punk rocker when I was 14, 15. Actually, I saw the film Sid and Nancy, and I wanted to be like Nancy. I was totally a big fan of them, and I was, into punk music and so on.
I thought there was enough room between the movie that I had in my head and the movie that had already been made.
Well, working with David Fincher is probably, I think I've met my match in terms of someone more obsessive and desiring of excellence. And it's been an interesting process.
This was, they let me go as far as I could, but I never looked at it and said, "Oh, I have to do this." I thought, under these auspices, with the right cast, with being able to shoot in Sweden with a Swedish crew, I could see doing this.
I think at her core, I can really relate to the character, and that's what helped me the most.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. To me, it's like, do the best you can, try to live it down.
The Millennium Trilogy is a global publishing phenomenon. 60 million books sold worldwide in more than 40 countries, and the books have broken records since their first printing.
His first novel, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, became the first million-copy selling ebook. Stieg Larsson right now is one of the best-selling ebook authors of all time. Last year, we were selling a Stieg Larsson book every second. 550,000 copies a week.
In Sweden, the books became hugely successful films, grossing over $100 million, and Hollywood took notice.
It's a very popular adaptation of a mass culture phenomenon, so better work on the movie side.
The Millennium series is a character-driven mystery story consisting of 3 international best-selling novels, originally written in Swedish by the late Stieg Larsson. The primary characters in the story are Lisbeth Salander, a woman in her 20s with a photographic memory, poor social skills, and a punk rocker's taste for clothing. and Mikael Blomkvist, an investigative journalist and editor of a magazine called Millennium, a character very similar to the author himself. Larsson planned the series as having 10 installments, but due to his sudden death, only 3 were completed and published. Men Who Hate Women in the year 2005, The Girl Who Played with Fire in 2006, and The Air Castle That Blew Up in 2007. The Swedish film production company Yellowbird produced film versions of the Millennium Trilogy, which were released in 2009.
Det har inte du med att göra. Du beställer, jag levererar.
Yellowbird and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer partnered with Columbia Pictures to produce an English-language adaptation of the first novel. The film was written by Steven Zaillian and directed by David Fincher, and released in North America on December 21st, 2011. Justice is defined by the quality of righteousness or moral rightness, while doing justice is defined as acting or treating fairly. The intertwining of the concepts of fairness, moral rightness, and deserved punishment is what is most confusing about the idea of justice. Fairness by whose standards? Rightness according to whose morals? Deserving according to what criteria? 2 films, 2 Lisbeths, 1 monster franchise. I'm your host, John Jansen. Welcome to the Hollywood Gauntlet. Joining me for this Double Dragon dissection are John Hargrove.
It's only natural to try and compare it. And I think that you're doing yourself a disservice when you do that.
Michael Stevens.
I think it cuts both ways. If the movie's good, well, they might have changed a few things, but that's okay. If the movie's bad, I can't believe they changed that. If they hadn't changed that, it'd have been a good movie.
Numi Rapace.
I think she's very impulsive. So today I want to be with a woman, then it's fine. And tomorrow I want to be with a man, and that's also fine, and that's me.
Rooney Mara.
But once I had read the books, I really had my own idea of who this person was, and I felt really strongly that I was the person to bring her to life.
Niels Arden Opalov.
I could truly say about the casting, I was a nervous wreck.
David Fincher.
Certainly, when I read it, I got to the second rape, and I thought, oh yeah, I know why they sent this to me.
Daniel Craig.
You just concentrate on what you have, and when you have a director like David Fincher and a wonderful script by Steve Zaillian, you've got plenty of ammunition.
Christopher Plummer.
A long career of playing a lot of villains, I jumped at it.
Jeff Cronenweth.
A murder mystery, noir a little bit. So the palettes are a lot different, and it's Sweden and it's winter, so it's soft and cool and dark and moody. And
Trent Reznor.
Well, David offered us the chance to work on this before Social Network really took off.
And Ric Silva.
But unfortunately, I think it's kind of the rape scene that kind of draws people into the character, that sees a woman at her lowest and then come back and get her revenge.
Just one step at a time and closer to destiny.
Part 1. Incentive. December 20 to January 3rd. 18% of the women in Sweden have had at one time been threatened by a man. Today we're going to dig deep. We're going to go right on into the best-selling novel by Stieg Larsson, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, or as it was originally published, Men Who Hate Women, 2 different adaptations. And don't let the title Dragon versus Dragon really fool you into thinking this is really about a competition between these 2 films.
Jag har aldrig gjort det här förut, så ligg still, annars blir det jävligt krisigt.
Lie still. I've never done this before.
Because it couldn't be further from the truth. I think what this show is more about is the true word of adaptation. What does it mean to take a book and to make a film of it?
I tend to feel that you give any 2 filmmakers the same script and send them away with the same cast, and you would come back with 2 different movies. I mean, it's a very, very subjective thing. Where am I gonna see this scene from?
There's always going to be choices. Some choices are going to be good. Some choices are going to be because it only solves this particular issue because you have a time restraint and what you have the ability and the time and the budget in order to tell this story.
Because Larsson didn't only write a book, he also wrote a social critique of Swedish society. And it was very important for me, as I know it was for Noomi when we got to know each other to do this work, that we upheld this in the film too, that we have a film that not only is entertaining but also dares to be edgy and handle this subject of violence against women.
We have one that was a very popular Swedish film and a second that has now become a pretty popular American film as well, and around the world. The American adaptation directed by David Fincher.
And I didn't read it because the producer who gave it to me, I asked her, I said, you know, this is 600 pages and I don't have time to do this right now because we're finishing a movie together. And she told me the story. And I said, nobody in Hollywood's going to give you the amount of money that it's going to take to get this movie made. And I was wrong. 5 years later, Amy Pascal, who is still running Columbia Pictures and Sony, brought me the same book and said, we want to make this and we don't want to dilute it and we don't want to dumb it down, and we think that there's a market out there for R-rated, really good R-rated movies for adults.
So, Mr. Mike Stevens, what is your original relationship to The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo?
I initially heard about the books when they were getting a lot of hype in 2010. And I tend to if I know it's going to be a trilogy, I tend to let all the books or films or whatever come out and then see them all at once. And that was very true of these books. Ironically enough, I have not read any of them. But that's where I first heard about them. And then I heard that the Swedish film was available. So that's when I saw that. I guess, what was that, summer, fall 2010?
I think this is one of those classic cases of what they call the airport novel. It has all the ingredients that sort of hooks you, a deep mystery, and it always has a couple of really dark, sadistic scenes that really stick with you. At the center of all of this, we have a really new and unique character that has really become sort of a heroine for her time, and certainly now is Sweden's most popular import since Pippi Longstocking, as Lisbeth would hate to hear.
No doubt. Yeah, she's a fascinating character, surrounded by fascinating characters.
Lisbeth, you know, her whole past rolls up, and you get to know what.
This is the Hollywood
I didn't care more than words can say.